Hello there, and welcome back to Warthon aboard the IJN Nagato in her 1944 configuration and to her first impressions. And I have to talk extensively about this new Japanese premium battleship at battle rating 8.3 and rank 6, because there are some fundamental differences to the sister ship, the IJN Mutsu, in her 1922 configuration at battle rating 8.0. And I think that, you know, I have my problems with the price tag of this ship, but the performance is actually quite alright and can be both frustrating at times but also very enjoyable most of the times. And I think there are some oddities that need explanation, because otherwise, if you don't know about them, they make no sense. Also, I have a scene included in a couple of moments where you can see the downside of the new damage models or damage mechanics auto repair in the background, where I just get showered by 40mm gunfire from a US battleship and I take heavy damage. Not because it actually penetrates my armor, but because it knocks out my light AA, which get automatically insta-repaired effectively and draining lots and lots of crew percentage, which otherwise I would have retained probably for longer. And this is a specific difference between the Nagato and the Mutsu. So first things first, there are two major differences, and they are in the armor and its layout, but also in the firepower. And it's not always clear if the outright obvious advantages actually turn out to be advantages in battle, because they come with some drawbacks as well. Now, overall, I love the shape of the ship. I love the pagoda mast. I love the look, the appearance, the style, the character of the ship, as well as the paint job. And this is obviously very subjective, but I hope that you can see what a ship is going to be. First things first, this ship costs 80 gaijin coins, dollars, euros, whatever your currency, and that is expensive and too expensive in my opinion. All rank 5 and rank 6 ships are heavily overpriced, and so we have to wait for a discount for making it worthwhile after all. That doesn't mean the ship is bad, but it is much cheaper to put a talisman on the Amagi and the Mutsu to research the Yamato sisters, the Yamato and the new Musashi. And well, here's the thing. The Nagato doesn't also fit in any sort of lineup. It's the only Japanese 8.3. The Amagi and the Mutsu are both 8.0. Putting a talisman on both is not just cheaper, but arguably the battle rating is also better, because you don't fight the top dogs all that often, whereas with the Nagato it's basically a 50-50. And 50-50 meeting something like a Sovietsky Soyuz, that's not nice. That's not nice, especially at range when it's angled. Then you have a tough time. But again, not the fault of the Nagato herself. So I shall begin with the firepower, because those 8 410mm-45 Type 3 turrets or guns in 4 twin turrets are really good. Those 16.1-inch guns have a ludicrous reload, whereas on the Mutsu we already have 24 seconds to reload, which is really fast. Now we have 21.5 seconds. Yeah, that is more than twice as fast as the 15-inch guns on the Roma or the Italian top battleships. That is really sad. And yeah, you also have improved AP rounds. So let's talk about the ammunition. You have the standard 410mm Type 0 common high explosive round, which is not too bad, but nothing really exciting. It basically has roughly half the TNT bursting charge that you can find on the 13.5-inch British high explosive round, which is still the best in the game. And you know, it does the job, but you're missing a base fuse, you're missing a sap round, and you go straight to the 410mm Type 91 APC. It has 15.63 kilograms of TNT bursting charge, or TNT equivalent bursting charge, then 780 meters per second mass velocity. It's not the highest, but it's alright, and due to the high caliber, it loses relatively less than compared to most 15 and 14-inch guns in comparison. Then at 10 kilometers, it has 568 millimeters of penetration, which is also a bit better than the improved AP round, the 410mm number 5 APC on the Mutsu, which has a mere 544mm and a lighter bursting charge, so that is interesting. And the shell also has a 0.05 second fuse delay, which is basically a long fuse, and that often helps, but it doesn't guarantee you the punching through the long bows of ships if they're bow in. And so the firepower, while great in most situations, also has the issue of accuracy, and I think the accuracy has been a bit worsened compared to the Mutsu and the Amagi, because, well, you have this ludicrous reload. And then we come to the armor, and I want to combine this with another fact, because here you have a 250 kilogram anti-torpedo protection system, which the sister ship, the IJN Mutsu, basically before a refit, doesn't have. But you lose the 533mm Type 6 wet heater torpedoes, and sometimes I would have loved, for sure, a pair of torpedoes being able to fire at the opponent, because you know, there are so many bots that are really difficult to kill, like an HMS Hood bot or something, and a pair of torpedoes or a salvo of torpedoes would help. But again, therefore you have the firepower and the secondaries. And I now want to talk about the armor, because there is also some fundamental differences to the Mutsu. First of all, the belt is the same with 305mm or 12 inches, but then you have some differences on the bulkheads. They range from 254mm up to 330mm, and where the barbette interacts with the bulkheads, you have an additional 76mm or 3-inch plate, making it over 400mm. And the front of the barbettes are, and the back, depending on which turret you're looking at 358.1mm, and then on the side, it's even thicker with an additional 124mm armor plate. But you face such ludicrous AP rounds at this battle rating that this does not generally help you. But when the barbette isn't hit perfectly straight on, then the area where such a shell can actually penetrate before you have too much angling on the barbette becomes much more narrow, and that you feel. Also, the turret faces have been increased in thickness to 457.2mm or roughly 18 inches, and they're also sloped at 45 degrees, but where the guns actually stick out, there it's only a 203mm rolled homogeneous armor plate, and that can be easily penetrated. Then we have also a deck plating over the magazines of 127mm. That is definitely an improvement compared to the Mutsu, which has unified 70mm plating. And the Nagato also has then a really weird twist to the turtleback. So the obvious right in front before we come to the turtleback, and that is that we have a missing armor gap in the middle that is much bigger than even the missing armor on the Congo classes. Now, there is not no armor, but it is actually structural steel. It's not as effective and not as thick, but there is not no armor. However, you take severe damage when you fire at the middle of the ship where the valuable propulsion is. However, when we then look at the front, where we have the citadel block, if you will, of the front ammo rack, then you can see that the turtleback is really, really thick. And it is in 3 sections. The upper part 266 millimeters, then the middle part 127 millimeters. That is 5 inches. It's the thinnest part, but still significantly stronger than the turtleback section on, for example, like Scharnhorst or Gneisenau. And then the lower part where it actually meets the belt, it's 210 millimeters. And then it also has a thin 44 millimeter section that goes right back. So you have some sort of diamond shape of the turtleback, which is really interesting and intriguing. So the front magazine is very well protected, as long as you don't angle it where it might hit the bulge part and goes through a flat 400 millimeters. You have no icebreaker, but on the rear magazine you have no turtleback at all. There is the armor plating then towards the rudder with a 50 millimeter turtleback, but on the rear not so much. However, mostly you are angled towards your enemy, and then the belt has a curvature that makes penetration there very unlikely. However, if you punch through the very much thinner deck plating from the front, then you have only middle bulkhead, if you will, in front of the rear magazine of 203 millimeters. That is not too much. The good thing is you have no ready rack in your turrets, unlike most US battleships, and also the magazine is quite the distance from the hull, which even if you face a much bigger torpedo should give you a higher chance of surviving the torpedo blast itself. Not to speak of the flooding, because this ship takes flooding not that easily. It floods quite severely actually, and you have to take care of this as soon as it occurs with the new damage mechanics. So yeah, this ship is in a way very fragile, but then it can also in parts take a surprisingly heavy bombardment, and this makes the Nagato a really interesting ship. It is absolutely fabulous when you don't get shot, and you can just continually pouring 16.1 inch AP rounds on your opponent. But again, I don't think this ship, like any tier 6 premium battleship, is worth the 80 Gaijin coin price tag. I think at worst, such a ship, which is just one premium ship of one nation, in one of the 2 tech trees actually of that said nation, should at worst cost you $50. 60 if you're a real fanboy, but 80 is just astronomically too high. I know over the years we had inflation and so forth, but by God, $80 for a single premium, I don't know, man. That's just not cool. Anyways, I really like the Nagato, but I think it's much more effective to put a talisman on both the Amagi and the Mutsu, which a lot of people have in the first place, because the Nagato was not introduced for the grind of the IJN Yamato, but a lot of people wanted to have the Yamato, and the most effective way was to get a talisman on the Amagi and the Mutsu, which actually make for effectively half a lineup. And you have money to spare in comparison to purchasing the Nagato pack. And you know, the lower battle rating, it really helps, even if you have a very long 24-second reload. But again, something like the Amagi with 10 guns, it's great. One final thing is the dispersion, and the dispersion on the Nagato feels really strange, and it is made worse compared to the Amagi and Mutsu, I think. And very often I have this ring dispersion syndrome. I don't have an even pattern, you know, that has a certain diameter. But it's absolutely the case that very often the area where you aim, the shells fall around, almost in a circle. It's not every salvo, and it's not, you know, geometrically clean circle, but you get the idea. And that then can make a really nasty impact. The Nagato is really cool. Again, I love the shape and appearance of the ship, especially the paint scheme and you know, the Tower of Power, the pagoda mast structure. That is really cool. And you even have radar, but honestly, the AA with all the 25mm emplacements, it's not a good AA gun. Doesn't have the rate of fire of 20mm, doesn't have the stopping power of 40mm or 37mm or their range, has a longer reload, doesn't track as fast, doesn't have the rate of fire and shell density overall, even though you have a ludicrous amount of triple, twin and single mounts. And yeah, the heavy AA, it's just 4 barrels per side, and you don't have proxy fuse. So the radar sees you coming, helps you seeing your demise coming towards you. Yeah, that's proper English, I hope. And I think this wraps up the description of the ship in a hopefully very understandable way. I hope I could help you in your decision if you want to buy the ship or not. And let me know in the comment section what your experiences are fighting with it, fighting against it, and seeing it in battle yourself. Really interesting to read this. Also, if you found this video helpful, entertaining, or in any way, any other way pleasing, then why not give it a like? Subscribe if you want to see more. For you, it's just a couple of clicks. For me, it means the world. And as usual, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. We will see each other on the battlefields, in the skies, and on the waves of War Thunder.